Why did Europe come to be the dominant civilization of the last 500 years? What was it that took these broken, scattered tribes at the western tip of the Eurasian landmass and made them the dominant force? You would have expected it to have been the Chinese who sailed around Africa and discovered Portugal, not the other way around. What was it? It was diversity, pluralism, freedom, competition, adventure. People... Because there was diversity, countries could copy each other, they could try new ideas, they could copy what worked best in another country. The tragedy of our generation is that just as the Indians, the Chinese, and the other great civilizations of the world are learning the benefits of decentralization and diffusion of power and local initiative, the EU is going in the opposite direction. We're now the Ming or Mughal or Ottoman state with a centralized bureaucracy, with high taxes, with uniformity. Europe's share, Western Europe's share of world GDP has fallen from 36% in 1974 to 25% now. It will be 15% in 2020. That's what happens when you centralize power. So when you say to me, what would I keep of the European Union? I'd keep countries talking to each other. It's a nice thing for the transport ministers, the agriculture ministers and so on, to have regular meetings. That has made unthinkable the secret diplomacy of kind of pre-1914. But you don't need all the rest just to have that. You don't need the bureaucracy, you don't need the tax, you don't need the expense. It's a problem throughout Europe and North America. We have been consuming without producing, and we have been funding the difference with debt, and I think we are facing a real decline in our living standards and a relative decline compared to other parts of the world. The paradox of the European Union that although the 27 member states individually are free democracies, the EU itself is not a democracy. It doesn't even pretend to be a democracy. It's run by a series of 5-year plans with a Politburo called the European Commission. Nor does it really pretend to be interested in liberty. It's interested in regulation rather than in personal freedom. Yes, it's true. Of course it's not. Obviously it's not a Soviet system. It doesn't take our passports away. It doesn't put us into gulags. It rests on the consent of democratic nations. But the EU itself is not, for me, the heir of the European tradition of freedom and democracy. It's got a different motivation. The founders were so determined to avoid another Second World War that they were prepared to restrict democratic accountability, to restrict freedom, and to overturn the rule of law if necessary in order to pursue their particular agenda. And that is something that we should be afraid of. If you have any group of people, and you know this in Romania as well as anyone, if you have any group of people who think that the ruling ideology is more important than the ballot box, more important than the rule book, more important than the freedom of the citizen, that is always a dangerous position, however good their intentions are.